So, the day is finally here. The Nintendo Switch presentation has finally happened, and will hopefully put to rest most of the rumours that have been happening over the past couple of months. Unfortunately, they did leave some things unaddressed, but I'll get to that later. Now, the first thing that they kicked off with, and I was quite appreciative of the fact that they began the presentation with this, and that's the fact that the release date is March the 3rd, 2017. It will actually be a simultaneous launch across Japan, the US, Canada, and major European countries. They also, of course, told us the price tag, and it's going to be $299 in North America. Now, they didn't actually reveal the UK price during the presentation. However, on the Nintendo website, on their store, it's £279.99. Now, what's really interesting, and of course this was one of the many rumours that have been circulating about the Switch, but it was confirmed that it will not have region locking generally. And what generally means, I don't know. However, that was the word that was used. Perhaps it just means that in most of the world it's not going to have any region locking, but perhaps they're just saying generally so that, if they want to do region locking in a certain area, what area that happens to be, I don't know, then they can. But generally speaking, no region locking, which is awesome news. However, of course, the other main point of contention about the Switch has been, well, what about the battery life? How long will it last? Now, they were keen to stress that, of course, it depends on the game, which is fair enough. However, they did say that it will be from 2.5 to 6.5 hours of battery. That's, of course, when it's unplugged from the main AC adapter, which will, of course, be the USB-C that we all saw rumoured a while ago. Also confirmed was the capacitive touch panel and also motion controls as well. However, just calling it motion controls doesn't really do it justice. It has accelerometer and gyro sensors for independent motion control of each of the Joy-Cons, and has the really interesting motion IR camera, which can detect a shape and distance of an object. In the presentation they pointed out that it can not only detect whether or not you're throwing rock, paper or scissors, but also detect how close the hand that threw it actually was. Now, this could have some really interesting applications for games, of course. Will it actually be used? Well, I don't know. It sounds could potentially be a bit gimmicky, but it is a really interesting feature nonetheless. And the motion controls within the Joy-Con do seem to be much more precise than what we had previously, because they have based entire games around just having the Joy-Con in your hands, tilting it to move your character, moving your hands to attack and stuff like that. I'll get to the games later, but it does look like it could be actually really interesting. Now, they also confirmed an NFC reader and writer for Amiibo, as well as the existence of that capture button that we all saw rumoured. That's the word that they use, is capture. They said at launch it's going to do screenshots, but at a later date it will do video as well. Will their YouTube policy be revised in preparation for that? Doubtful, but that is something that's going to happen. And there is a home screen button as well, as you'd expect to use the other apps such as Netflix and so on the Switch. Now, speaking of the Joy-Con, now again, I haven't actually physically held the console in my hands or anything like that, of course not, but just from the way it was held in the presentation, the Joy-Con perhaps looks a bit small. I don't know if that's just me and my monster hands, but it looks a bit small. But again, just a minor sort of, that potentially could be a bit small, but I'll have to wait and see until it actually is out as to whether or not it's actually too small. We'll see. Another confirmation from one of the numerous leaks is the precise vibration that we saw ages ago now. So many of the things that were rumoured over the Nintendo Switch's sort of pre-announcement of back in October, and obviously after that, have actually been confirmed. Now, it seems they will be doing a lot better when it comes to multiplayer, as of course it was mentioned with regards to various games, but they did say that there's going to be a smartphone app for the Switch for multiplayer, so that you can invite friends and see what your friends are playing and all that sort of stuff on your phone and do all that via your smartphone if you so desire. I would imagine there is capability to do it via the actual console, but, you know, say, oh, just pick up my phone, oh, so-and-so's online, I want to quickly just go on the app and say, hey, come and join me in this game or whatever. So it does seem that they are improving in that regard, but of course that's going to be the proof of the pudding, I suppose. But it does seem, at least, that the multiplayer aspects will be better on the Switch. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are going, what about the specs? Did they tell us about the specs? No, they did not. We have some other details that we didn't know previously, but we don't know the hard specs of the machine yet, which is really disappointing, to be honest. But I'm sure we will learn before it comes out. There's directs that they can do. They can just release it, of course, but I am disappointed that the specs haven't been confirmed, and of course this means that we're probably going to have more leaks and rumours about that until the actual confirmation. However, we did get confirmation that the Switch device has a 6.2 inch 720p multi-touch display that will of course run at 1280 by 720 when used in handheld mode. Of course, when docked, it is going to be outputting full 1080p. And Nintendo did say that it is using, as we already know, a custom Tegra processor, but they didn't tell us which one or any specs about that particular processor. Now, storage-wise is 32 gigs of onboard memory. You heard me right, 32 gigs. There are USB thumb drives with more storage space than that. That seems like nothing. And it is nothing in comparison to 500 gig and 1 terabyte PS4s and Xbox Ones. However, it can be expanded via micro SD cards. Now, as we already kind of expected and already knew, games for the Switch will come on sort of SD-like game cards, and I would imagine that a lot of these storage-based concerns will be kind of put on the shoulders of each of the individual game cards. I highly doubt we're going to be installing games on the system like we've been doing with the PS4 and Xbox One. With that limited storage space, it probably is just for save files, your capture and video, but, you know, it does make me wonder how am I supposed to capture video when I have 32 gigs of space? That's like one video, if you're doing well. But again, it can be expanded, but not brilliant. However, we also learned that those rumours about no Ethernet port are indeed true. You can, however, connect using a USB LAN adapter on the dock, and of course it will have a Wi-Fi connection as well, and can have up to 8 Switch consoles connected for local multiplayer, which is pretty cool. Lots of local multiplayer support in the first-party new titles that were revealed during the presentation. So, with all that out of the way, we have the games. That was what most of the conference was actually focused around, was the games. And we have some interesting games that make use of the Joy-Con. Now, this kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about the precision that seemed to be in play with the Joy-Con motion controls and the tilting sensors and all of that, as they have created games based upon that. For example, there is a game called 1-2 Switch, which is basically a party game. We have a collection of mini-games. However, you do not need to look at a screen. There is literally no point looking at a screen. You might be going, what do you mean? How can you not look at the screen? That makes no sense. Well, basically, the trailer showed, say for example, 2 cowboys facing off in a duel where they're about to draw their pistols and shoot each other, and that's how it would be working in the actual real world. You and another person would be facing each other with your Joy-Cons, and the console will tell you when to go, and obviously whoever goes first is also going to be the winner in that regard. And they showed that things like tennis and other such things. So it is literally you and another person facing each other using the Joy-Con controllers to pretend you're doing whatever the game's asking you to pretend to do, and there's literally no need for a display. Interesting. They were very much going, yeah, we want this to be at parties and so on. I mean, those sort of mini-game collections are pretty good for parties, but I don't know. I don't know how popular it's going to be if it's literally just 2 people standing in a room looking at each other, pretending to swing swords or fire at each other. I mean, it could be fun. I don't know. It was a bit strange, but it could be interesting nonetheless. That's going to be a launch title on March the 3rd, 2017. They also showed ARMS, which is a really weird-looking fighting game, 1v1. It's sort of boxing as if you were that guy from One Piece, where your arms can kind of stretch out and curve round. And obviously, again, this is another game where you're using the Joy-Con to, you know, register your punches, and you can tilt the Joy-Con to change the direction of your punches, and you know, you move your character with the motions as well. So it's all, again, just based around using the Joy-Con motions to control your character and, you know, execute your special moves and so on. And it looks interesting. It will have both single player, local co-op, and multiplayer, which is pretty good. I mean, it's a fighting game. It'd be a bit remiss if there wasn't multiplayer. It could be fun, actually. I mean, it looks simplistic, but interesting nonetheless. Again, that's a spring 2017 launch for that. No release date exactly, unfortunately. However, moving on from those ones onto more traditional games, we have Splatoon 2, which was announced. No Wii U port... no Switch port of the Wii U version, should I say, of the original announced at the moment at least. But Splatoon 2 is happening. There's going to be new weapons, and there's going to be special weapons that you can unlock after you've covered enough of the map in ink. It's going to make use of either the Joy-Con or the Pro Controller, much to the relief of most people, I would assume. And again, it's going to have similar support to the first game, where they're going to be adding maps and a ton of content after release. And of course, there's going to be online and local versus via the Switch. Now, there isn't really much revealed about the Splatoon 2. A bunch of gameplay is shown that, you know, made it look like, hey, it's more Splatoon. They did say that there's going to be more information revealed about Splatoon 2 nearer the time. This isn't going to be a launch game, unfortunately. This is going to be summer of 2017, so not even an exact release date. So I would assume we're going to get more details what exact weapons, maps, changes, what's different versus the first game, and all that sort of thing nearer the time. But it does exist, and it looks like it could be fun. A little bit disappointed they aren't bringing the original game over, at least as far as we know, but Splatoon 2 is still pretty damn good. Now, they also showed a bunch of trailers in rapid fire without showing much information, but before I get to that, there's one last first-party title that they revealed, and it was Super Mario Odyssey. Now, this looks interesting, because it's a sandbox game. Yes, they've got all sandbox with Mario as well. And it's not actually in the Mushroom Kingdom. Somehow Mario gets in our world, and he's running around in the streets of like real world cities, as well as being in fantasy-esque locations doing his usual Mario thing, but in a sandbox world. Is it going to be hub based? Is it literally just going to be, hey, you run around and you can go in certain areas, and in that area there's going to be X, Y, and Z quest? Or I don't know exactly how it's going to be done, because Mario in Sandbox sounds intriguing, but I do wonder how exactly it's going to work in terms of the gameplay. Is it literally just going to be you find quests out on the map, or is it just going to be, again, hub-based? I think hub-based would suit it better, but a hub-based game isn't actually a sandbox usually. So we're going to have to wait and see. That's going to be holiday of 2017, so it's going to be quite a while before we find out more about the game. It looks definitely different to previous Mario titles, which, to be honest, is exactly what Mario needs, so perhaps I should shelve my skepticism for now. Now, as I previously mentioned, they also showed a bunch of third-party titles. No real information about most of these, but we did have Xenoblade 2, Fire Emblem Warriors, Project Octopath Traveler, which is a new Square Enix game. They also revealed that Dragon Quest X and 11 are coming out in Japan, as well as Dragon Quest Heroes 1 and 2. There's also going to be a new Shin Megami Tensei game. Skyrim was finally confirmed to actually be a thing. They didn't actually say if it's the new version that just came out for the PS4 and Xbox One. I would assume so, but they didn't say one way or the other. Also, Suda 5.1 came out onto the stage, and the translator, who wasn't the translator for most of the thing, they just brought on this new translator while Suda 5.1 was on the stage for some reason. And that translator seemed to be thrown for a bit of a loop when Suda 5.1 came on, because he was stumbling all over his words. It was quite painful, to be honest, and I have a feeling that his translation was not brilliantly accurate. But we do know that a new No More Heroes game is coming. There's no other information other than that. There's not even a trailer ready when he took the stage, so That is literally all we know, that there is a No More Heroes game in development for the Switch. It doesn't even have a name yet, so that shows you how early the development is for this particular title. There's also going to be FIFA, we kind of already knew that, as well as, of course, NBA 2K as well. Now, you might be wondering, what about Zelda? Did they not show Zelda? Well, they waited until the very last, 2 minutes of the show to show the trailer for the Zelda game. I honestly thought they weren't going to show it. I was like, you're going to reveal when Zelda's coming out? It's a bit concerning. Is it going to be a launch title after all? But no, they did show a new Zelda trailer, which confirmed that it does have full voice acting, which could be interesting. The voices, obviously, were all in Japanese in the trailer, but it still could be cool. I highly doubt the main character will speak, but the other characters do. However, they did confirm that yes, it is coming out on March the 3rd, 2017, so it is a launch title. Now we know. Awesome. Great news. So, there you have it. All the information from the Nintendo Switch presentation. So the main thing that was left unaddressed is, of course, the specifications. We learned a few things, like, the battery life and the resolution of the screens and so on. But we don't actually know what the Tegra is, the power of it, how much RAM the machine has, how much performance we can expect. All of that information we don't know, unfortunately. Hopefully we'll learn soon, but for now, that is me done for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.